HoMie's been about trying to make caring cool. Obviously we have the business component, and we're obviously trying to become, a prominent sort of retailer, if you will, in sort of the Australian landscape. But obviously we're also, quite unique in that we are a registered charity and, classified as a social enterprise. So all the profits from the sales support our mission, and that's to provide, employment opportunities for young people who are experiencing homelessness is sort of the bottom line for us.
Hello and welcome. I'm Elizabeth Formosa, the founder of Fashion Equipped and devourer of all things fashion, business and mindset. In this podcast, I'm speaking with thought leaders, change makers and entrepreneurs about the business side of fashion and everything in between. Fashion Business Mindset is your front row seat to real stories from designers, brands, entrepreneurs, makers and mentors. We'll discuss how to launch and grow a fashion business and give you insider access to the future of fashion. So let's do this together and ensure that you're equipped to make the fashion business your business. Welcome back to Fashion Business Mindset. My guest today is Nick Pearce, the co-founder of HoMie. HoMie is a streetwear clothing social enterprise that supports young people affected by homelessness or hardship with the skills, confidence and experiences to become more work ready and better prepared for their future. HoMie believe in young people and believe homelessness is a situation that you can move out of with the right opportunity and support. During this dynamic chat with Nick, we discuss the why behind the launch of HoMie, the life-changing programs that HoMie and their community partners offer, their iconic VIP days that support young people along with their key support workers, HoMie's Reborn program, and news about HoMie's partnership with ABMT to create Australia's first upcycling factory, and so much more. This is a true purpose-led business. So let's dive in. Nick, welcome to the Fashion Business Mindset podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you for joining me. Now, Nick, before we dive into all things HoMie, I'd love to focus on you for a little bit. Can you share with us a little bit about you before launching or co-founding HoMie back in the day?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I was probably quite young when HoMie sort of came to be. So I think I was just hitting my 20s. So I didn't have a lot of life experience, prior to HoMie. I think it was probably my first full-time job. To be honest, I think, I'd had experience working. My first job was, flipping burgers at a grilled restaurant because that was the cool thing to do, when you were a teenager in my demographic. And then I worked at a bottle store and then a cafe. And then I was a manny. For a couple of years whilst we started HoMie as well. So doing a lot of babysitting was sort of the jobs that I'd had. So I think took bits and pieces from all of those to help inform obviously HoMie, but and how I worked. But obviously I grew up in the southeast suburbs of Melbourne. Had a really lovely supporting family and went to a great school and fortunate to travel overseas a little bit as well. So it was kind of, my background was in the grand scheme of things, I was very fortunate really in terms of, access to a lot of things and a really, strong support network. I guess though, leaping into HoMie, I didn't really have, a business degree. I did a communications degree at RMIT, which I loved, probably more so for the social component. But I guess I didn't have a business pedigree, hadn't gone to business school, studied commerce, nothing like that whatsoever. I sort of, one of those things that I sort of fell into, and it was almost like, all right, you need to pick up the pen and keep writing this story. So that's what I've been doing.
These are my favourite conversations to have. So no formal degree, but you've dived straight in the deep end to co-founding your own business. So this is the most relatable conversation we could have for our listeners, Nick. So can't wait to hear all of the insights into how you and your team have made this happen.
Amazing.
So let's start with HoMie. HoMie stands for Homelessness, of Melbourne Incorporated enterprise.
That's
I
correct.
did not know that until I started stalking you. I just thought HoMie, it was like the relatability to homelessness, but that was very clever. Basically what HoMie stands for. Can you
Yeah.
share with us a little bit about the brand ethos, the values, and your vision for this business?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Look, it's HoMie, I guess for us is as you say, it's actually the acronym.
Mm.
It was a business name that we had when we first sort of started out. So we were registered as a charity, and that was what we were, an incorporated association at that point in time. So HoMie was literally Homelessness of Melbourne was kind of the charitable entity that we created, and then I kind of came up with the acronym and just thought, oh, that sounds pretty cool and catchy, and that might work pretty well. So that was really where it, I guess, came from, and I guess for us, it's one of those things that, HoMie's been about trying to make caring cool. Obviously we have the business component, and we're obviously trying to become, a prominent sort of retailer, if you will, in sort of the Australian landscape. But obviously we're also, quite unique in that we are a registered charity and, classified as a social enterprise. So all the profits from the sales support our mission, and that's to provide, I guess, employment opportunities for young people who are experiencing homelessness is sort of the bottom line for us. So yeah, it's one of those lovely sort of worlds colliding where we tried to take a commercial vehicle and apply it to obviously being very purpose-led. And social enterprise is a term that's sort of, quite in vogue right now, etc. But I think for us, it's business with purpose, and without any profit, there's no purpose. So we are unashamedly trying to make as much profit as possible as an upper profit to reinvest into fulfilling our mission, which is these employment pathways. But there are 2 impact programs, which I can talk a bit more about, obviously, as we go through it. So that's kind of, the initiative and the entity. And I guess from a value perspective, it's one of those things. Respect has always been really important, in terms of a core value for us. Respect to sort of the issue that we're trying to work with, as well as, I guess, our consumers and everything like that as well, and trying to be really accessible and sort of progressive. But also being innovative, I think, has been really important. I guess we have tried to apply an innovative solution or approach to what's been a long-standing social issue, which is homelessness, obviously. So that also is kind of at the core of how we are liking to do things, because it's about trying to do things differently, and trying to I guess traverse some of those terrains that maybe haven't actually, been walked as yet, and finding out what happens. So that's always been really, key and core. And then just, being authentic as well as a brand. I think our tone of voice, we try and make sure that we are really accessible, and it is a brand that is, intended to be for everyone. And I guess the best way to demonstrate is that, we have a VIP Day program that we offer as one of our impact programs, and it probably tips that conventional notion of what is a VIP customer on its head, in that, our VIP customers are people experiencing homelessness, in that we close our store to the public, and we invite a local youth homelessness service to come in and shop for free, etc. And I guess that's quite different to what people would probably assume to be, a VIP customer in a retail landscape. It's probably, the luxury and sort of the secret, shopping room and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we're really trying to, I guess, champion the voice of these people who often haven't had these opportunities to have dignified shopping experiences, etc., and these employment pathways, at their disposal. So that's what we're really about. Sorry, that's a fair bit, but I guess
that is a lot. That is a lot to unpack, and I love it. I love it because there's so much there to talk about. So I'd love to break it down for our listeners. But before we do, I love a few things that you said then, which was about making caring cool. I think that that's such an important message for everybody in business, everyone in the world, basically, making it caring cool. I think, this whole kindness matters. I mean, it's always mattered, but unfortunately, at times everyone gets lost in other things. So it really is coming back to the fundamentals of being human, which is making caring cool. And you mentioned something about purpose. There is no purpose without a profit. And I think that again is a very important point for our listeners, because we know that brands with purpose are the future of retail, the future of fashion. Okay, so we know that, big tick to that. Sustainability, circularity, obviously social enterprise. There's so much richness there in terms of what we can do as an industry. But we have to have this profit first mentality, because if we don't, how are we going to actually help others? So I think that that's a really important point, especially for the startups that might be tuning in, to really have that profit first mindset, so that we can do all the wonderful things that we have as part of our business vision. But I just wanted to break down your business model kind of step by step if we could. So I know that 100% of HoMie profits go towards achieving your mission of supporting young people affected by homelessness and hardship. So let's talk our listeners through the business model and the program. So you've mentioned a few, and you mentioned the VIP, but we might talk about the programs first in terms of those that are helping those experiencing homelessness and the training programs that you have. So let's perhaps start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we offer two impact programs, and one that I guess we are really particularly proud of, and sort of I guess is what we feel a very logical value add to the homelessness situation in Melbourne, in Victoria, and in our country. It's called the Pathway Alliance program. So we provide a paid retail training and employment program for young people, particularly between the ages of sort of I guess 17 to sort of 25-ish. And it's an 8-month paid retail internship. So we deliver a Cert 3 in business in conjunction with a local RTO. And the young people are also guaranteed paid part-time work either on our shop floor or working with one of our Pathway Alliance partners. And we align with a couple of brands that people would probably be aware of. So Champion's one of them, and also Nike is also a group that we work with via the Retail Prodigy Group, who has a number of their franchises. So it's really about, for us, I guess, fundamentally, employment is a key component of, I guess, moving a person into a place of independence. And we work with young people because, youth homelessness is so overrepresented. But, it's one of those things, I guess, people would know that, 1 in 4 people experiencing homelessness are under the age of 25. So it's quite, as I say, overrepresented. And, retail is the biggest employer of young people, and youth homelessness is one of the most prominent groups of people experiencing homelessness in our country. So we feel like it's a really important vehicle, and key part of the solution. It's not everything, but we partner with, housing providers and specialist homelessness services that provide that wraparound sort of support and care. And we're just that next piece of the puzzle and providing that stepping stone into, okay, well, let's make sure people can earn a living, gain confidence, skills, experience all those things to help move them into that place of, ultimate independence, and, hopefully becoming a, happy and healthy, contributing member of society is so that's that program, and we're
amazing.
Really.
Can I ask where do the people come from that, so anyone listening who's interested in sharing this, in terms of they may know someone, who could be a great candidate for this program, where do people come from? Do you have those partnerships? You mentioned a couple there.
Yeah.
So where are people streaming in from?
Yeah, we do. I mean, that's really important, I guess, is that, we align and partner with specialist homelessness services that have, I guess, presence, at the coalface, working on the front lines and providing that sort of wraparound support and care, because that's, not in our remit. We fulfill certain components. However, we can't do it all. Obviously, I think we talk about we can't do everything for everyone, but we can do something for someone. So largely we align with, local homelessness services to providing that foundational support and care. We then have a process in which we go out and, try and promote the program and do interviews and work alongside the services of the young people to identify folk who might be wanting to take this, leap of faith into this program. So that's kind of how it works. I think it's good for everybody because we've got that really important wraparound support outside of work, but then also, strength of referral into our programs.
Yeah, absolutely love it. And you mentioned a couple of brands there, Nick, Champion and Nike. So how did they become involved? And are you looking for other brands to become involved in the future?
Yeah, for sure. Look, I think it's been quite organic in that those relationships have just evolved through just visibility, whether it's through networking, et cetera, and just entities. And I say, it's Nike via the Retail Prodigy Group, and it's, Champion via the Haynes Brands Group. And fortunately, the leaders of those institutions have been really is keen and curious about how they can best support the work that we do, and they support us. It's quite multifaceted, but one of the key things is we need to have folks such as yourselves advocating for this kind of program, because it also sets a really positive example, and it demystifies and sort of removes some of those barriers that other folk may be, holding towards providing these kind of opportunities. And I guess that's really key for us. So it's about having these aspirational brands as well, I think is really critical and crucial. So because for our young people, we don't want these opportunities to be, second tier. This is about making sure that they get, the opportunities that we all want and deserve for ourselves. So, we're really, I guess, quite intentional about who we do align with. And as we spoke about in terms of values are really important, ensuring that is not just a greenwashing component, but very much a commitment from both parties to ensure that we're all contributing equitably to make sure that we have success in our program. So it is, a partnership that is not, surface level. It's very deep. It's very meticulous and, authentic, again, is one of our values. So we're always looking for the right strategic partners. Absolutely. But aspirational workplace, it's amazing when you hear these young people say, I've grown up wearing Champion or Nike my whole life, and the fact that I'm actually working here now is just, it's crazy. For they just say, like, it's just beyond what I could have ever imagined. I thought I'd be working, I don't want to say some other brands or businesses.
Yeah.
That's where I thought would be the sort of limit for myself. So it's really awesome that these are the kind of places that they can actually get an opportunity. And again, it just sets a really positive example for the sector, saying, hey, we're doing it, and you can do it too. It's not as hard as you might think it is when you're working alongside groups such as HoMie. We provide the tools, the support. So we are certainly always on the lookout for the right people to align with.
It's life-changing. As you said, employment equals independence. It's really as simple as that, isn't it? But really, these supportive programs are life-changing for many. How many people can you take into the program, like, each year?
Yeah, so we work, as I say, it's a very, collaborative, comprehensive sort of endeavor. So we work with around a dozen young people. Per 8-month cycle is sort of the program as it runs. And I guess, that's quite unconventional in terms of often programs, comparable sort of government, agencies, etc. They don't run for this kind of tenure. So it is a very deep investment and commitment. So we are, I guess, really trying to make sure that it's long-term positive outcomes that we're focusing on. So it's quite a lengthy program, and that's obviously complemented by the VIP Day program, which is the other offering that we have, which I guess we're able to get a lot more volume through, if you will, in a different capacity, which is the dignified shopping experiences and kind of an introduction to HoMie. So we host them obviously 12 times a year. Essentially it's once a month, where we meet new young people, new services, who then also are referred into our program. So it's a nice little closed loop in terms of how it's all functioning right now.
On that point, let's unpack that a little bit, because I wanted to go deep into the VIP days.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you open the doors to these amazing people, what's the experience like on the day?
Yeah, well, it's one of those things, I guess, we're really trying to achieve a dignified shopping experience. So we, close the doors to the general public, and sometimes there's some rare circumstances where we'll do like a outreach VIP day where it might just better suit the service and the young people. But essentially, close the store to the public. We invite a local service to come in and shop for free. So they get to choose, each young person, up to 5 items of brand new clothing. We have haircuts, food, coffee, nail salon, etc. It's one of those pampering experiences. And I guess the whole idea is, yes, to certainly just make someone's day a bit better and easier and nicer during a difficult time. But also it's to introduce them to HoMie and have, I guess, hopefully a pathway into our Pathway Alliance program, in that we have graduates from our Pathway Alliance program who come back and help co-facilitate that day. So it's that lovely kind of, piece of advocacy where someone has gone from that side of the register as a VIP customer, and then they're on the other side serving someone as a graduate of the Pathway Alliance, saying, hey, I was here 8 months ago. I'm now working here, living here. You should apply for this program. These guys do as well. So it's one of those things, I think, like quality and care is and diligence, like that's what it's all about for us. It's not actually about volume and scale, because sometimes these things, there is certainly, scope for growth. We want to do that, but you don't want to compromise on quality, because, we're working with young people at a critical time in their lives and livelihoods. And, obviously the consequence of not doing that justice is a lot less desirable than having a positive outcome. So it's just, there's a lot of intentionality behind these things. And yes, it sounds, at surface like, just it's really lovely and warm and fuzzy in terms of it's an amazing shopping day, and it really does a lot, but it serves a deeper purpose, because it is about getting familiarity with services, young people, and hopefully trying to get them on side to want to participate in our program, because a shopping day is obviously not going to change someone's trajectory in terms of brand new clothing, etc. But it certainly does make it a lot better and easier, we think, and we get amazing feedback in terms of confidence, etc. And maybe someone feels more able to go to that job interview or to go back and re-engage at school, etc., because they're feeling a bit more comfortable about, how they're presenting. But the ultimate goal is to really try and feed people into our employment program, because that's what really changes lives.
Yeah, it's a great initiative. As you said, like you're making meaningful connections during that VIP day. And so it really is building that rapport, building that trust, offering an experience and creating that ecosystem, as you said, with people then becoming comfortable, they've connected with you and your business and your team and everyone else involved. And then that may actually motivate them to look into the pathway program. And then again, going down that route. And again, that employment equals that independence. And again, that's life changing. So I absolutely love that community element that you've put in place. And as you said, that's 12 times a year. So that's no easy task. You've got to sustain that. And no doubt, that takes a big group of people to pull that together. Are the people that are involved on the day, are they typically volunteers that you have involved? Is it all an internal team? Who jumps in?
Yeah, it's a good question. Look, it's a very small group of committed people. Fundamentally, I think it's largely comprised of both our HoMie team as well as the graduates. As I say, we often, I guess, pull on to help support the day because of, as I say, the advocacy piece and the referral, I guess, component of trying to get some more visibility about the program with the young people who are visiting and becoming VIP customers. So we actually don't have a lot of volunteers at HoMie. I mean, and that might surprise some folk, but again, it's one of those things where these days are really hyper curated in the sense that, some of these young people are coming from backgrounds of deep trauma, etc. And, we have youth workers on site. We have a lot of consideration as to how these are actually orchestrated to ensure that people's well-beings are at the forefront. So sometimes that might surprise people because, yes, it sounds like an amazing voluntary opportunity, but it is reserved largely for, as I say, the internal staff who have the skills and the training, as well as then the graduates of our program, because it's just more appropriate. And we've had instances where we might have had a women's, refuge come through, and we don't have any, mass presenting staff at that event because it's just not appropriate in terms of the format. So we just really try and make sure that it's curated in the sense that it's serving the best interests of the people who are actually shopping versus the people who are helping make that happen, if that makes sense.
Oh, it's so interesting to hear that. As you said, you've done your due diligence to make sure you've got the right professionals available on the day. Because, you are dealing with a lot of different people, a lot of different experiences, traumas, as you said. So it's a big responsibility opening up the doors and doing that. Yeah, big responsibility.
You don't take it lightly, absolutely. So no, it's a bit unconventional, but there's method in the madness at all things, HoMie.
Yeah, totally. Very, very considered and meaningful. Nick, I'd love to touch on, homelessness in Australia, just for our audience to put things in perspective. You mentioned a couple of stats. So you said 1 in 4 under 25 are homeless. Is that right?
Yeah, experiencing homelessness, that's right, in a given night. So again, confronting, I think there's a number of stats which probably challenge the conventional, again, sort of stereotypical preconceived notion of what a person experiencing homelessness is. And I use that language because, previously I would always reference someone as a homeless person, but I guess one of the actions that we tried to advocate for is, language being very powerful, and that notion of, well, it's an experience people can get out of with the right level of support, care, opportunity, etc. And I guess that's what we try and actively promote through how we do things at HoMie. But, homelessness in Australia it's very significant, obviously, and it's getting worse. I mean, the most recent census, tells us that, any given night there's over 122,000 people experiencing homelessness. Wow. So the MCG obviously is sort of Melburnians, and full capacity grand final day, that's how many people are experiencing it in our country. I think probably one stat that would I guess be relatively informative for listeners. And I didn't know any of this stuff as well. So I preface I certainly wasn't an expert, and I'm just someone who has a bit more experience after a few years of learning. But, it's less than 10,000 people who are actually living rough in Australia. So it's people who are couch surfing, sleeping in cars, refuges, etc. Most homelessness is invisible. In our country, the leading causes are obviously lack of affordable housing, and then domestic and family violence is also very prominent. So those are the two leading causes. Again, I think the thing that I always I guess made the association between was substance and alcohol abuse. And I guess another stat which really challenges that is that less than 10% combined of people experiencing homelessness out of that 122,000 are there as a direct result of substance and alcohol abuse. So it's, often far contrast to what is perpetuated through the mainstream media is the bottom line. So we're really passionate about trying to advocate for that, because unfortunately, as I say, the assumption, which is the exact one that I made, was that it's the elderly person who's, got the grey hair and beard with a bottle on the streets. It's actually so far contrasted. That is certainly our reality. for some people, but youth homelessness is very overrepresented. So I think what might also surprise people is that 60% of that total population is under the age of 35 years, and I'd still consider that relatively young. So most homeless is young people, and that's the bottom line. So we're really trying again to bring that to the forefront, because we had to remedy, and I spoke about it, previously, is that we can't do everything for everyone, but we can do something for someone, and try to work out where's the logical value adds that we could create. And we thought that, well, given that youth homelessness is actually so represented but underreported, maybe that's where we try and focus. Because if we can provide these pathways, and advocate for these young people, we can potentially try and break that cycle. I know it sounds a bit romantic, but really, trying to get to the root of it and ensure that we can ultimately prevent it from becoming a chronic issue for people. Because there is, I guess, insights that once someone passes, the age of 25 plus and they're experiencing homelessness, and it's living rough, etc., that it is, the likelihood of it becoming a chronic thing and, their lifetime, it just exponential versus when you can actually intervene. So we're very much heavily committed and focused on, preventative sort of approach and practice, because we feel like that's one of the key solutions to actually addressing this, is that it is a spectrum. It's a very big, complex issue, but we had to, I guess, question ourselves, where are we best placed to make the best possible impact? Because we can't do it all. And what is everyone else doing, and where are the gaps? And there was, I guess, an insight from a young person on a VIP day who just said, had an awesome time. This is when we first started them. I love this day so much. I need a job, like no one will give me any, a go, nothing on my resume, no work experience. Like, how am I supposed to actually move from point A to B? And that was the aha moment for us. It was like, oh, wow. Like, well, we're running a retail store. It was voluntary at that point in time. We were just trying to make it happen and, hoping for the best. But then we realized, well, what if we could turn this into just paid casual employment? What if that then evolved into more opportunities and more employment for other young people? And then that, I guess, evolved into what is now this structured retail training and employment program, because we see the immense value of that kind of investment. So that's how it's all come about. But hope that's not too overwhelming for people. I think it's presenting and also saying, hey, there's solutions here.
I just think, well, that's the point, that there are solutions. And I think it's such profound work. I think that there would be, from our listeners, certainly those figures that you just shared, they're pretty confronting, Nick. Like, again, as you said, we've got this kind of archetype in our mind of who and what homelessness is. But as you said, it's very rarely what we're actually thinking. It's the younger people. And as you said, you think drug, alcohol abuse, but that's a small percentage based on what you've just shared with us. So you've created this amazing ecosystem, this amazing community. Did you see, I'm assuming you saw that go next level post-pandemic in terms of the people reaching out for help in terms of homelessness?
Oh, absolutely. I think the challenge for anyone in the sector, is that the demand far outweighs the supply, and people trying to provide support, and at different ends of the spectrum, right? So in terms of access to housing, there's not enough solutions. There's enough housing in terms of literal houses in our country. However, solutions in terms of how to actually appropriate those residences and ensure that it is wraparound and all those kind of things, that's just not quite there yet, right? So that's number one in terms of the issue at large. Is the solution to homelessness is obviously housing, but it is sustainable housing. So that requires, as I say, a comprehensive approach to someone's health and well-being. And I think during COVID, what was really interesting is that not in a, this is fascinating and cool, but obviously in a very, again, similarly confronting manner, is that we saw people's, I guess, susceptibility to homelessness in terms of family, breakdowns transpiring, and, people, I guess, financially not having as much of a parachute, etc. And everyone almost moving a little bit closer towards potentially being vulnerable to experiencing homelessness. So I think that's what COVID also did and is doing, right, is that we're still trying to recover from this thing in terms of from an economic perspective and mental health, well-being and all those things. So people's mental health, again, was something that was certainly challenged, during that time. So all of these kind of precipitory factors were all triggering, whilst this was transpiring. So I think, again, one of the things that the census is, probably the best resource that we have. But what it doesn't tell us is also people who are in transit when they do the census count on that night. So these numbers that I just threw at you, they're also underreported as well. But I think what we saw through COVID is hopefully, like, in a positive sense, more empathy for those who literally
Yeah.
having to live the same day over and over again, are on hard times, are having these pressures and these stresses, and those
Hmm.
all being sort of, I guess, enhanced for all of us. But then, yes, in terms of correlation to people experiencing homelessness, I guess just the amount of people who've become more susceptible or experiencing hardship as a result of this situation has obviously increased significantly as well. So yeah, it did exacerbate it. I think what it did do in some ways, though, was hopefully for some folk develop a greater sense of empathy, because it was like, well, wow, this is actually really tough. And now I can put myself in the shoes of, well, if I didn't have, I've got, at least I've got a roof over my head, but what if I was literally living the same day over and over again? And that's the feedback you hear from people who are living rough, by far and large, is like my life is Groundhog Day. And,
Yeah.
I feel invisible and I've got no social connections and I'm just disconnected from the world. So, I guess that's maybe the silver lining, was hopefully that some people, it instilled a sense of, geez, now I know what it feels like a bit more. And God, I got to try and do something about this because it felt bloody horrible.
Yeah, I think you've just perfectly articulated the why. I think, if all of us haven't come out of COVID with more empathy, I'm not sure, the world ever will. But what you've articulated is the importance of why brands like HoMie must exist and must have longevity based on the amazing, work that you're doing. So let's talk about the product, Nick. So we've talked about the programs, which is
Yeah.
amazing, and the people that you're helping, which is, again, just next level. Let's talk about this beautiful product and what is it that you sell at HoMie? How do you sell it? We know that you've got your flagship store in Melbourne based on Brunswick Street in Fitzroy.
Yes.
So tell us about the collections, tell us about the people in store, tell us about the online experience. How can we access this amazing brand?
Yeah, no, thank you for drawing our attention to it as well. I mean, look, the brand is obviously, it's largely streetwear. So our whole thing, as I say, was trying to make caring cool, and we thought that streetwear was a great vehicle and sort of medium to connect with young people, obviously as our target demographic. But I think a lot of our apparel lends itself to most, if not all ages, depending on how daring some folk may be. It is, quite, I guess, largely, this is gender neutral product. It's product that we, in terms of how we present, as I say, HoMie is an acronym. It stands for something bigger than just what it might be at surface level. And then I guess we talk about it being a label for the streets. Obviously it's streetwear clothing, and it's quite unassuming in I guess a lot of the ways that we have slogans or kind of advocacies done in a way that's quite subtle. So it's not, anti-homelessness charity on the front of a t-shirt. It's all quite subtle, I guess. And again, curated in its intentionality, but there is a lot of intentionality to how it's all presented. So we drop, largely just two ranges throughout the course of, the calendar year, our autumn, winter and spring, summer. And it's all largely designed by our creative director, a product developer as well. But our creative director is one of the co-founders of the organization. So really that, the heart and soul of the initiative. So that's also evident, I think, in the apparel as well. But how we try and, move that, I guess, is, we have our flagship store, which I think is a really awesome shopping experience for people if they are based in Melbourne or traveling from interstate and visiting. I think one of the lovely things is that you just know when you're shopping there that, often the person who's serving you is benefiting not only financially from, your contribution, but also you're directly supporting their learning. Obviously we don't have our interns, that's what our young people are in our programs. It's an internship, but obviously de-identified as well. But if you know about HoMie, you know what you do. It's great to know that, oh, wow, I think someone today might have actually, just something good's happened as a result of just something that I was able to do, which was obviously getting something for myself as well, which is, how it's all been crafted. So that's one of the perks of obviously coming in store. And I guess it is challenging at times to try and translate that to digital platform. But I think what we really try and do with our socials and obviously in our correspondence to our consumer is keep them frequently updated about what's happening as a result of their purchase, what are our impact stats at, at any given point in time, and, just those wrap ups as well, so people can really understand, what's happening when I'm supporting this place, because transparency is really important.
Yeah.
We really want people to understand exactly what their contribution is actually doing. And it is supporting this mission, right? So we are a registered charity, but obviously we have to, pay our staff. We want to pay our staff because we want to try and make sure we can attract and retain talent And because we need talented people in this, world to be able to be focusing on these kind of issues versus making more money, at places that don't need as much money as we do, etc. So those things, I guess, we're really unashamed about is like, yes, we treat it as a commercial entity. Bottom line is that, we've spoken about, there's these two really important programs which are making a real life-changing difference, and that's what your support is doing. So I should add, we do have another range as well that we offer at HoMie called Reborn, which is a really cool initiative that was enacted by our co-founder as well and some other awesome people, which is essentially recycled range, upcycled, if you will, in that we've elevated these garments that were otherwise destined for landfill, traditionally been these very bespoke, one-of-a-kind kind of, again, highly curated. It sort of almost replicates the program offerings in terms of how meticulous the approach has been, which is obviously, I guess, a proactive approach from us in terms of, the situation with landfill, etc. And we're very conscious and cognizant of the fact that we are in the business of production as well. So trying to minimize our footprint as much as possible and provide these kind of innovative solutions, touching another key thing of HoMie. But we're actually just about to expand our offering with that because it's been so popular. We're partnering with a group, AMBT, and about to sort of scale our production there. So there'll be a lot more of a product offering because that's been the challenge, is doing it all in-house. We haven't been able to produce as much. They have all been one-of-a-kind pieces, but we're now transitioning across to being not one-of-a-kind, but still, limited edition, very small runs. But obviously we can increase our production of these upcycled garments because we know that, essentially 1 billion garments are made each year. Surely some of those we're able to appropriate into, something that would otherwise be landfill and provide a second shelf life or, solution. So that's another offering that we have. So I guess there's a lot behind the scenes when you scratch the surface of HoMie. There's so much behind everything that we do.
Oh, there sure is a lot behind the scenes because I absolutely love the Reborn program. I want to touch on that again in a minute, but just to recap a couple of things that you said. So basically saying HoMie's for all ages. It's streetwear focused. It's gender neutral. It's basically a cool product. So this is, if you want to wear your values and shop your values, then, go definitely, HoMie's the brand for you.
Please do.
Even though you've mentioned all ages, are you finding that it is in line with those that you are supporting? Is it the younger, is the core customer, the younger demographic that is typically shopping with you at the moment?
Oh, yeah, typically, I think, it's sort of, it's probably more skewed towards that 18 to 35-year-old sort of demographic. Yeah. However, there are like considerable outliers. We have grandparents who are buying for a grandchild and then going, actually, I love that jumper for myself. You know what I mean? I guess one of those things that I think there's some really nice entry points to the brand that make it more accessible for someone who might be a bit deterred by, oh, that looks a bit too, street heavy for me. But there are some really nice, I guess, staples that we offer, which seem to be, well received by the broader community and essentially all ages. But that is, as you say, our core customer does sort of replicate and emulate the cohort that we're also trying to provide these employment opportunities to.
Yeah, I love it. I love it that it transcends basically all demographics. I'd really like to touch a little bit more on Reborn because, again, there are a lot of admiration for you doing this program, so the unique upcycled garments. So you mentioned a MBT. How are they going to get involved in terms of helping you to scale? So you've been doing kind of the one-off pieces. Are you now going to be working with dead stock, or how are you going to go into, I guess, taking this next level?
Oh, it's a great question. Look, I think one of the things that we've started to do is we're working alongside one of our strategic partners in Champion, who've been giving us for, I guess, a couple of years now, their excess stock, and we've been able to utilize that for I guess our own Reborn range and what we're selling in our own store. But I guess we're now looking at providing that service back to customers, and these businesses. So we're talking with groups such as Country Road and Hugo Boss and a number of other retailers, because essentially we're able to provide a solution for them and associate with this brand as well. So it's a win-win where it's almost, there's the narrative around the circularity and obviously the opportunity to certainly enhance your, I guess, hopefully consumer sentiment, because you're doing, another really positive thing with the business that you're in, but also then knowing that the business you're doing with us is obviously, again, contributing to our program. So we're trying to make it a two birds, one stone solution. But what it does is essentially just our capacity, is enhanced tenfold. I mean, we're able to essentially look at upcycling, around $1,000. Sorry, 1,000 garments. That would equate to a lot more than $1,000, but,
Yeah.
1,000 commitments in a week versus what's typically been, less than 100. So we're able to actually really start to provide a solution at scale, not just for our business, but for other major businesses. So if there are these groups that are looking for a listen and some listeners who might be interested in this kind of solution, do it with us, because you're clipping the ticket both ways in that it's a great story, it's the right thing to do, but also you're supporting our mission and our programs, which we've spoken about.
I think the majority of our listeners are going to be interested. So I hope you get some inquiries, because guys, here's a solution, and it's so fascinating. Someone's got a problem, someone's got a solution. At the moment, you've got a solution to offer people in terms of the whole circularity piece. So is the upcycling being done here in Australia? Like, is this local?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So we're working with AMBT, who are based here in Melbourne. So that's the strategic partner that we have for this project. So yeah, it's happening onshore, which is again, just another great string in the bow.
So that's amazing. So your creative director will work on all of the design around the upcycling, and then you've got the manufacturers jumping in to help you to,
Correct. So we do that for ourselves, obviously, what the patterns are going to be and everything like that. And we give the, design inspo, and then they just produce at volume for us. But again, we would tailor that to any business in terms of what they're looking for, and collaborate with, the leadership team or whoever, I guess is a designated lead on that project to make sure we come up with the right solution. Absolutely.
Yeah, I absolutely love it, because as you said, Nick, everyone's looking for a solution in this space at the moment, new initiatives. We know that waste is a huge problem in our industry, and the Australian government has given us a deadline to basically start to find effective solutions in this space. So obviously, keeping raw materials in circulation for longer, finding a new life for them is certainly one way to go about it. So, and I love the name that you've given it with the Reborn program as well. So well done. So definitely, to our listeners, reach out to Nick and the team at HoMie if you are interested in getting involved.
Please do.
So, Nick, you've mentioned a few people involved in regards to the behind the scenes at HoMie, but let's go a little bit deeper into how HoMie ticks. So you've mentioned, obviously, the program. So on the front line, at retail, who else is working in the back end? You mentioned co-founder, creative director. So perhaps let's kind of showcase who else is on the team, and what their accountability is, and what the supply chain kind of looks like as well.
Yeah, look, it's quite as I say, it's quite a small group, as I say, very committed people, a number of people who've been with the organisation almost since its inception. So there's a number of sort of founding members who are still in the workforce. So there's, I think, 3, including myself. But I guess, there's almost a twofold. We have obviously the commercial arm, and we have the impact arm. So we obviously have, from an impact perspective, our head of impact is one of the founding members of the organisation, was when we first opened our store, working on the coffee machine whilst, we were on the till sort of type thing. So we've all been learning and growing together, but just evolved through experience. So really the architect of all of our impact and our strategic partners in that place, etc. And then we have youth workers from that background who are key and secret sauce to sort of the program success, are also part of that group, and a number of other staff members as well who fulfill very important duties for us with our stakeholders, etc. And then from a commercial side, obviously, yes, there's what has been myself as the CEO, and I think obviously there's news there as well, which is exciting for me and us. But our creative director, head of digital marketing, and that component, and obviously the product developer. But we essentially have one person for each kind of key competency, I think, that or minimum discipline that you require probably to fulfill this operation, but they are also undertaking a number of different roles within that as well, right? So there's the job title, but we are a small, lean startup that certainly revolves around people exerting themselves, not beyond what's reasonable, but sometimes that can transpire, right? Like that's what it takes. But you don't want that to be something that is obviously an infinite sort of reality. It's about making sure that we're working to ensure that what do you say, you work to live, you don't live to work, and that's something that we're also really trying to champion. So it is quite a lean team. I mean, also utmost transparency, we're still not a sustainable business yet. We rely on support from, I guess, external groups such as private philanthropy and family offices, and grants and donations also play into our bottom line, because that's how we're configured. We are a charity, so we're about 65% self-funded in terms of our total income comes through ourselves, but 35%, which is a critical amount, comes through external support. So that's, we have, again, staff who have to manage that component for us because it is critical to mission success. But again, that's just the reality of how we have to operate right now. We are trying to become 100% independent, stand on our own 2 feet, self-sustainable, sufficient, all those things. And it's initiatives like what I just discussed, which will help get us there, in terms of these business solutions and trying to attract other business from folk because we can provide competitive offering at quality as well. So those are the kind of things which will certainly strengthen our ability to continue to do what we do. So that's really important. And I think from a supply perspective, we work with a brilliant supplier who we've been with for a number of years now, called Maker & Co, who are based in Sydney. Awesome folk. They are very strategic in terms of the groups that they work with, in terms of factories. We do produce the large majority of our garments offshore. But we do also have onshore offerings as well, with a number of our accessories and sort of bespoke products that we also enact from time to time. But we're really buoyed by the fact that we were introduced to this group through one of our strategic partners, who, if they're using them, we feel very confident that we could be using them, because they're a lot bigger than us and have fully committed teams who obviously focused on international sourcing, etc. So it's been a great solution for us. And as I say, that's the beauty of these partnerships we've been able to broker with these retailers, is they're helping us not just through providing employment opportunities, but going, hey, we can help you with your sourcing. We can find you the right places for the solutions that you need, etc. But as I say, we are very conscious of the fact that we are in the business of production and minimizing our footprint as much as possible. And that's why there are, solutions such as Reborn that we're trying to do ourselves, but then offer others as well, because we certainly would want to be in a situation where we're providing opportunities here for young people and amazing life-changing outcomes, but obviously working, in exploiting, offshore as well. That just doesn't compute, does it, right, in terms of how we need to operate. So it comes back to our values. And as you say, like, profit is really important, but certainly not profit at the expense of ethics and morals, which I think probably has been in the limelight more recently, right? And it's just not worth it, is it?
Yeah.
Really?
No, it's not. It's definitely not worth it. And I think that's why it's a slower burn for a purpose-led business, because, yes, there are ways to fast track profit, but often that comes at an expense, and definitely, usually to the detriment of our values. So I think that, slow and considered, they're the brands that are around for the long term. But you mentioned a couple of things there, Nick, that I'd love to touch on. Firstly, congrats to you and your team. I knew you had a lean team, but a very dynamic team. And it sounds like everyone is giving it their absolute all to have gotten this brand to where it is now. So congrats to everyone involved.
Thank you.
You've obviously got an amazing, major supply chain partner, which again, I'm sure that's a real blessing to the business, because without a solid supply chain partner, it becomes very, very tricky terrain. So that's amazing to hear. You mentioned that you're not 100% self-sustainable at this point in time. Would you like to put it out there to the industry and to the universe? What is it that you need to become 100% sustainable as a business?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of things. I think one of the solutions that we're working on is obviously a lot more focused on business to business. Like the best way people can help us is to help us do our business better, or do business with us, right? So we provide this solution to a number of different groups at current tense, small, medium, large, in terms of producing, their corporate wear. We've just gotten into construction, and we're doing construction apparel as well. And obviously the Reborn solution. So we are looking for people to, I guess, say it's something we want to build a partnership with, versus it just being a one-off kind of, obviously, of course, donations and fundraising, all those things are absolutely amazing, and they are often game changers, but we're wanting long-term strategic partnerships where people can do business with us, got a quality solution and outcome, but ensure that it's something that can be long-term, because that's obviously going to feed, as I say, through not just for a year, but obviously many years, of course. So that is what we are really looking for from a commercial perspective. And then, as we spoke about, we're always looking for the right strategic partners in terms of people we might be able to work with who would adopt our Pathway Alliance program. And we do also have an additional offering, which is called our empathetic employment training. And what we've done is essentially distill the 3 core approaches to how we work with our young people, and that is a strengths-based approach, unconditional positive regard, and meeting underperformance with curiosity. And we run workshops based on working with the cohort, I guess, who as we spoke about, have been heavily stigmatized, and have often got the odds against them. But what these kind of approaches and what empathetic employment can actually do to not only transform their life and livelihood, but also your internal team and their own well-being and sense of purpose, et cetera, et cetera. So that's also an offering that we provide as a fee for service. So we want people to do business with us. So do training with us, purchase product from us, become a HoMie, subscriber, and hopefully wear it on the weekends. But also, if there are ways that we can provide a business solution to you, we want to do that, because that's going to be, I guess, the long-term outcome that we need to make sure that we are sustainable.
I love that. I love those B2B solutions. So just to recap the first one on partnerships. So you mentioned, so that's the merchandise side of the business, where basically you mentioned construction. So this is an opportunity for anyone out there who needs merchandise to basically buy that from HoMie, co-brand it based on what requirement for the end use is. It could be anything. It could be corporate apparel. It could be, I don't know, a fun run that needs to be branded. So anyone can get involved from a partnership perspective rather than going out and starting from scratch and doing generic merchandise. You're saying they can come to you, partner with you, and they've basically tapped into a business with purpose straight away.
Spot on. And that's the thing, as you say, is that any profits that we realize from that job are reinvested into the mission that, helps make the magic happen. So that's absolutely bottom line. We want people to do business with us. Obviously, business at scale is always any business is amazing, but at scale, obviously, it just even becomes, a greater, proposition as well, in some circumstances. So absolutely, that's what we're yearning for.
Love it. Love it. So we've got that partnership on product or merchandise. Then you've got the Pathway Alliance and the empathetic employment.
Yeah, correct. Empathetic employment training. Yep. So that's kind of a pathway and an entry point for people who might be interested in becoming a Pathway Alliance solution is potentially undertaking this training. It can be an hour, 2 hours, half day, full day, et cetera. Again, we tailor that to the workforce needs and the size of, the group, et cetera. But what we've seen, I think, happen time and time again is when we have young people go into these environments and working with our external partners, the feedback from the stores, the staff is, wow, like the productivity of this place has just, again, accelerated beyond what we've ever anticipated, because our team feel that they've got something bigger to work for as well, beyond obviously what is, paying their own rent and all those other things. Their productivity, they're setting, they're trying to set a really positive example because they understand the responsibility and the weight of what we're trying to achieve here. And, again, in some circumstances, it's been awesome. Some of the young people have entered into that workforce anonymously and no one's had any clue. They're just another staff member, but some have chosen to share and disclose their story. And the feedback is, wow, like, man, I need to set a good example here because I'm in it. I want to make sure this is a positive experience for everybody and I can learn from this, etc. So it's been awesome to see the feedback that's come through from these retailers, the store managers, the staff, the team leaders, just saying, my goodness, what we've seen happen in this place, it's been transformative.
Oh, that's amazing. And like, who wouldn't want to get involved in that? We know how difficult it is, like people, place, culture. We find it very difficult as business owners sometimes to find the right people, the right fit. And it sounds like you're basically, you're at that coalface there, training and infusing, not only you're a business with purpose, but you're actually training these amazing people to pass that on, to pay that forward in terms of taking that into their retail career. So absolutely. Sounds like a win-win to me. So there's an invitation to our industry, to anyone who is tuning in to this dynamic conversation to get involved. So definitely to reach out to Nick and the team at HoMie. Why wouldn't you get involved?
That's exactly right. That's the proposition. Thank you.
That's it. There's the invitation, everyone. So let's just quickly touch on sales and marketing, Nick. So you've got your amazing store. You've got that, amazing experience that people can have in the physical store. You've got your online channel. You've talked about the merchandise partnership opportunity from a B2B perspective. What else is there? Are you going down the path of wholesale? Are you looking at international? Like what's the big, blue sky vision here for your distribution channels?
No, it's a really good question. I think one of the challenges that we face, but it's also, I think it's a beautiful constraint, right? But we actually can't yield investment. There's something, known as impact investment in our world, but we can't, receive pure investment in the sense that we don't have any shares to offer, like in terms of, the value is all of our, board are voluntary, et cetera. So it's one of those things, I guess, that for us, we don't have a war chest of working capital, right? Like every dollar we're having to account for, of course, but it's in terms of obviously, buying our stock, our bills and all those kind of things. It has to be pretty meticulous because, growth for us, it's not as clear cut as we just bring an investor on board and they can help us open, up shops, across Australia and internationally and all that kind of stuff. I think as we've spoken to, we're really trying to build that online presence and become, I guess hopefully a household name, right? That people can identify with, not just what we do, but hopefully more importantly, the way we do things, which I think we've gone into the detail of. So that, that's something we're having to do sort of relatively, scarcely in the sense that, every dollar is so valuable. And obviously we're sometimes weighing up between more marketing or impact in a program. So it's a really challenging proposition at times. But I think we have a really unique story. I think we're just trying to make sure that we can find more avenues people to connect with that. And obviously how we do that storytelling in the digital world, because it's quite a unique experience, because you come into the store and you can feel there's, physically there's a response to what we do. How do you translate that to, obviously, as I say, the digital realm? And that's something I think we're always trying to challenge and becoming a lot more proactive in terms of how we share stories with consent. And that's always a challenge as well, is because there are some stories which would blow people's minds, but actually we're not at liberty to share them because it's just, again, it's not appropriate. But that's important, because it, again, harks back to what are our values, what's our position and stance here, because there could be some ways that we could potentially, forge a deeper connection, but it's just at the expense of someone's well-being, right? And that's, we never want to not do that. So I think growth for us, right, we talk about conscious growth. And that's something is not biting off more than we can chew. And, and opening a store in Sydney is very different to opening a store in Melbourne. It's a different community. Obviously we have to connect with the service providers, young people. It's going to take a lot of time, but those are the things we do want to try and do. We'd love to have more physical presence, and whether that's through collaborations, pop-ups, and we're starting to do some of those things. We work, with the annual collaboration with Champion, which is amazing in terms of the national visibility that we get, etc. But it's quite guerrilla tactics, right now, in that, we certainly are having to always find, these innovative ways to build our, brand equity. I think we do have an annual campaign, again, which is probably another awesome avenue for people to get involved. It's called Hoodies for Homelessness. There's a day in April. It's the third Wednesday of each April every year, which is Youth Homelessness Matters Day. People have probably never ever heard of it before, but understandably so. It's something that, again, I had absolutely no idea of prior to getting into this world. But we've created a campaign called Hoodies for Homelessness. It's been running for 2 years. It's been an amazing initiative in terms of it's gotten us national visibility. We've been on the project, and Tommy, the comedian's, been an amazing ambassador for us, and him alongside Carrie on the radio show have given us an awesome platform to connect with, Australia. And it translates from what we get from that kind of visibility, the sales, we essentially hit our online budget, in 24 hours for the year when that happens, because people with the product, which is really awesome. It's, these amazing hoodies with, as you say, intentional but subtle, slogan and sort of design. But the idea is just to try and get as many people as possible, wearing a hoodie on that day and buying one through us, because it's just, we're trying to make these avenues easy, right? We're not, I guess, trying to reinvent the wheel, as I say, but what are the ways that we can provide a platform, an outlet for people to connect and engage, which isn't an inconvenience. So it's like, people are buying apparel, streetwear clothing. Let's just make sure it's really cool and on point. We might be able to get some of that market share. People are, buying merch for their workplace, et cetera, et cetera. Let's make sure that it is quality and we can do it with, I guess, the exact same expectations that I would have for any other, entity that they're doing business with as well. So it's just, we're always trying to make sure that what we're doing is something that is, not too gross a step outside of our ether of what we feel really comfortable and confident in delivering, but also making it easy and convenient for people to support it. We haven't tried to make it hard to support this charity. Like, that's the bottom line. No,
it's very easy to kind of get involved pretty swiftly. So it sounds like everything's been quite organic, quite grassroots, and you've articulated there, when someone with a high profile gets involved and utilizes their platform to share the HoMie story, then things start to fire. So essentially it's about getting your business and your brand in front of people. And we know that when you do that, there's an amazing response to what you've got to offer. Do you know the Kardashians by any chance, Elizabeth? I'll get back to you. I'll go through my little black book after this, Nick, and I'll see what I can do. No, thank you. You're totally right. Just translate. If the Kardashians are tuning in, then they know where to come as well. Chris, give me a call, please. But seriously, anyone tuning in that has, is obviously passionate about working with brands with purpose and has an amazing platform or profile, where they would like to utilize their platform to have a voice for a beautiful brand like yours, certainly don't hesitate to reach out. Now, just on the whole sales, marketing, operations, I hear the recent news is, Nick, that you've appointed a new CEO. So
Yes.
maybe just tell our listeners a little bit about that and what we would expect to see in terms of, are we going to see some changes, new strategy, a little bit of I guess an injection of maybe a change of direction. What would we expect to see?
No, yeah, it's a great question. And we've been saying get in touch with Nick. I'm still going to be around in the background, but it'll probably be get in touch with Steph or one of the leadership team members. It's probably been about a year of being in the works, but my partner also runs her own retail business. It's not a charity, but they do a number of different charitable endeavors, but it's called Merry People. She sells gumboots. It's a really cool ecom brand. And obviously we started our family and we're growing our family. We have Jack, who's just over 2, and we have another baby due in December. So it's obviously becoming quite challenging for both of us to work full-time in CEO roles at full capacity, plus obviously trying to raise a young family. So I'm taking a backward step, which has been, a long time in the works. And we have a woman called Steph, who's absolutely brilliant, who's come from the Reach Foundation, which is a really recognizable brand and charity here in Melbourne, largely because there was Jim Steins. I think a lot of people would know as a former very famous Australian footballer from Ireland, actually, and created this awesome charity. But Steph's background is marketing, used to work marketing, or head of that at the Reach Foundation, now was at the Big Issue prior, now at HoMie, and then previously worked in the AFL as well. So just someone with a really good commercial background, and particularly in regards to marketing, which is probably that new life of injection that we need to really accelerate this brand from being what is quite hyper local to hopefully a household name. So I think from an impact perspective, we're all super aligned in terms of we're not trying to rock the boat here. We if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We know this program works. We know we need to try and do more of it. There are ways we can do it slightly better, but it is industry leading in terms of the outcomes that we achieve. So we're very committed to quality always, but now it is really about making sure that we can elevate the business, and the impact at the same level, and try and make up some of that proportion of that 35% through obviously activating more business. So that's a real focus. But as we spoke to, bottom line, the initial point of this conversation was, without any profit, there's no purpose. We're really trying to make sure we can maintain that purpose, consciously grow that, but then also support it, I guess, off our own volition, more so is the goal. But awesome character. Everyone's really pumped to get started. But what's my role going to be, I guess? This is something it feels like, in some ways another child, it's something I've always really enjoyed. I love doing this stuff. I love advocating for what we do and the way we do it. And I'm still going to be really focused on, I guess, bringing business and organic partnerships and all those things to HoMie. So if people want to get in touch with me directly as well, I'm going to chaperone those things to hopefully try and make some magic happen still. Just obviously not in a full-time 24/7 capacity, which is often what these jobs can be. We're obviously trying to make sure that's not the case, because, we're going from someone who's been a founding member and CEO to someone we're appointing as a CEO. So really having to shift the dial and adjust expectations of, what we're trying to achieve here. So we're all feeling really excited about it. And I think it's an important step a lot of organizations sometimes need to take, and can take it too late. There's never a perfect time, but the resilience needs to be tested, because, you can't rely on foundational folk being around forever, and you want them to do different things. We want other people our founding members potentially to evolve and go work elsewhere, etc. That's important. Take their skills and try and influence other businesses. So I think it's important. You don't want to always maintain a monopoly in it. There shouldn't be this kind of over reliance on these personnel. It's about upskilling the workforce and making sure that this thing can sustain beyond us, because I want it to be around longer than I'm around. This the goal.
Yeah, and I think it's such an important thing to acknowledge, Nick, as well. There's different phases of business. So this is a really exciting phase for HoMie, appointing Stephanie, and of course you're still going to be involved, but you're going into a different phase of life as well. But the business gets the best of both. They're not going to lose the DNA of the founders of the business, but you've got this fresh injection, these fresh eyes on the business, and I think that's what we need at certain times, certain stages of business to go to that next level. And as you said, you want to work towards being 100% sustainable. So no pressure on Steph at all, but
No. Even, as we shift the dial somewhat, that's progress is, is perfection, but it's progress, and that's what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Nick, are there any other milestones that you would like to share with our audience? You've obviously, articulated the profound programs and all of the amazing work that you're doing beautifully. But is there anything else that, you and your team have achieved in terms of a milestone that you'd like to share?
Well, we're about to chalk up our 100th VIP day, which is pretty awesome. So that's going to be a big milestone for us, and we're actually hosting a special event. All details to be confirmed, but looking to actually provide that service to 100 people on that day. And we're already well beyond having over 10,000 plus items of brand new clothing, not being donated, but actually being chosen at someone's own discretion. Yeah. And if we actually put a dollar value on, I guess the stock per se, if you will, like we're well over $1 million plus of clothing that we've been able to donate via the medium of someone actually, getting that and receiving it, but choosing it as opposed to it being, presented to them, which is really important distinction, I think, in terms of how we operate. And, we're well over 2,000 young people now have been supported. Obviously, we have around 50 graduates of our Pathway Alliance program, but we have, almost 2,000 odd young people who've come through the VIP Day service. So quality is so important for us. Quality over quantity is really key and critical. I think what's most impressive for us is that I think it's a minimum of 12 months post our program, the Pathway Alliance program. We have 90% of people who are either working part-time, full-time, or engaged in a further form of study and living independently post our intervention with our program. And those stats, they just don't lie in terms of what, again, some comparable government schemes are able to achieve after 2 months. It's they're worlds apart. It's not to knock that approach. It's just like that's one approach. This is a different one. And these small but mighty entities, often the ones that can shift the dial. It's just you can't do it at scale, or unless you get significant commercial backing and rigor that comes in an unconventional manner. So I think I always say I'm not proud of what we do. I'm proudest of the way we do it. And that's the key distinction again to make for us and me. And that's what hopefully is a legacy. Is it's not about trying to take on the world. There are so many issues. There's so many things going on, but just doing our bit, setting a positive example, and helping others to potentially find what they can do. And that's a nice legacy because then they can do that for someone else, as we say, and then that becomes someone else. So it's a ripple effect.
Oh, it certainly is a profound legacy. As you said, the pay it forward, the ongoing impact. It is just such meaningful work. Now, Nick, I know we're at the pointy end, so we're going to fast track these last couple of questions.
No worries. They keep it up.
I can't let you leave without sharing with our audience, any of your key tips, advice, words of wisdom around starting and scaling a social enterprise. I'm sure a few ears have pricked up around, what it takes to do what you do. There's amazing outcomes. It is a business with purpose and impact, but not without its challenges like every other business out there. But are there any words of wisdom that you'd like to share for anyone considering a social enterprise in the future?
I think you've got to fuse, like the most important thing I've learned, you have to fuse passion with logic. So passion can certainly take you a very, very long way, but then that needs that logical application of, well, how are you contributing towards being part of the solution to the issue or the whole solution or whatever it might be. But that, I guess I hark back to the commercial component around like, you don't want to just have amazing programs and awesome work that exists for a year. How do you sustain it over the course of a decade and beyond, et cetera, et cetera. So making sure that those two things are aligned at all times, I think is really critical. So it's like passion, but then also that logic and sense checking and making sure that you do have the, infrastructure to be able to support at least getting, closer towards that promised land. And there's a quote I love because I think it's, like how do these things actually even happen and how do you start this stuff? And I think it's something about, it was Mark Twain, something about it's like getting ahead is getting started, right? And I love that because there's no playbook that you can go to. Like, there's no rules. It's one of those things, I think, that this all started because Marcus and myself, one of the co-founders, were curious about homelessness. And we went and spoke to someone on the streets, got down to the level, shook their hand, looked them in the eye, and just had a chat. And then we realized, wow, that person was so different to, who we thought they were going to be. And that passion was ignited within us because we got so frustrated by, as I say, kind of like, well, the community's perception and our own perception of, I don't know, say everyone, but, sometimes, there's unfortunately more people who haven't had those insights than have. And that's what set us on this journey, right? It was literally being curious. So I always say, feed your curiosity. That's always ask questions. Why is something like that? Why isn't it like this? And that's what getting started is. Getting started is being curious. And yeah, it is hard work. I mean, I think that's also something that you don't take lightly. Is like, you really have to put in beyond what is reasonable. Like a social enterprise, it is an unconventional business, and it sometimes, especially early days, takes more than what one would deem reasonable at times.
Not for the faint-hearted, I'm sure, but as you mentioned, that passion and the why is so important, because that's what it's going to keep you going day after day, week after week. But then, of course, you've got to be aware of, that logic piece, the commercial side of it, having the right people around you, the infrastructure, all of the things that, we need in business. But I do agree it needs to start with the why, especially around social enterprise. There generally is that emotive, start to the why you're actually in it. And I think that helps with the longevity.
Absolutely. But look, I would also say, preface, if I can do this, I'd say most, if not all people, can have a bloody good crack at it and probably do a better job. So I'd also take that solace.
There you go, everyone. There's a bit of inspo for you. Now, Nick, just to finish things up, finally in closing, we'd love to know what excites you most about the future of retail.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. I think so many things. I think it's just such a wonderful, medium and conduit to, so many different possibilities. I think it's connection. A thing that I love most about retail is its connection, whether it's to a brand, to an experience. And for me, I guess connection to a cause, right, is what we're trying to champion. And I think we're really seeing that. I think what really excites me, obviously, I'm biased in saying this, is the amount of purpose that is either embedded with entities from the outset, or those who maybe haven't had as much as they would like to have done previously, who are actually now proactively trying to play catch up. So I just love the fact that it builds connection in a world where we've seen what it's like being disconnected. And I think it's one of those things, retail is just, it's sometimes underestimated in terms of all that it does and offers to those folk who work in it and those who are the beneficiaries of supporting that industry as well. So yeah, I'm biased because that's a sector I've been in, but I think for me it equates to possibilities, connection, and as we've spoken to, really championing purpose, because we're showing people that they can change the way they live, and how they consume. And it can actually be a really wonderful thing, not only for them, but also for other people as well, or for other causes, which is awesome. So it's great to see that actually transpiring and it being real time.
Nick, absolutely profound words to end on. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your amazing business with purpose with us today. We'll be absolutely watching this space. I know where I'm buying my next hoodie, and hopefully
April.
Hopefully our listeners get on board, not only from, shopping your collection, but also from a B2B perspective. So can't wait to share this episode, Nick. And yeah, absolutely have been an admirer for so long. So yeah, really happy to share with our industry.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I've absolutely loved it. And if anyone is interested in getting in touch, supporting, whatever, please do get in touch. We would love to hear from you.
Thanks so much, Nick.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Fashion Business Mindset podcast. We'd love to keep connected. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Fashion Equipped. And if you'd like to find out more about our Start Your Fashion Business program and your mentor collective, head to our website fashionequipped.com.au. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share this podcast with others, hit subscribe, leave us a rating and review. Let's do this together. Let's make the fashion business your business.
This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose.